saw in the Queensland and WA elections, the governments were handsomely rewarded when the narrative was, we kept you safe. Well, the economic version of that will be part of the narrative that the government will be going to, which is thanks to JobKeeper in particular, and then obviously the support payments that were around during the most recent lockdowns in New South Wales and Victoria, which is, hey, we kept your business together, we kept your job together on top of all of the other border things. Labor, of course, will want to change the subject or point out the inevitable fraying on the edges of things. But do you think that people will view the federal government economically as they did the state governments when it comes to thanks for keeping us safe?
Yeah, they may. There's two important caveats here. So no doubt there is a lot of pent-up demand in the economy that, look at anyone who's had kids in the last 3 months in Sydney. They're bursting out of their clothes and shoes and, all of that consumer activity is happening now, and then it's going to roll into Christmas. So you're going to get big growth numbers. The two important caveats that the government's fortunes will really depend on how big that growth number is, because that number will, as you talked about a couple of times, impact the interest rates. If the Reserve Bank thinks inflation is going too fast or too hard, they'll raise interest rates. That's going to hit on the other side of the ledger on people's house prices or mortgage rates. The second thing is a little bit harder to hit, but also related. It relates to wage growth. If you get the ASX booming, which it is, and you get all these great economic numbers being reported, that's all wonderful. But if people aren't feeling that in their hip pockets, if they're still walking away thinking, oh well, this must be someone else, I'm not doing any better than I was, then that lingering resentment will continue. Now, I think the good news for the government is that I think wage growth will pick up over the next couple of months. You're seeing a slight tick up now. And I think the constrained labour market, all this extra demand in the economy, I think you're going to see an uptick. So the question then becomes interest rates.
Yeah, well, and again, so many echoes of that 2004 campaign. We've already heard the Prime Minister echo the who do you trust on multiple fronts. Interest rates are at that record low level. The RBA say they won't be touching them till 2023. But, Nicolle, again, the consequences of, if there's a change, in my view, in government that has a different attitude when it comes to spending, all sorts of things can start to change. Inflationary pressures that we've seen in the United States could end up being echoed here. So it's very important to keep an eye on what the alternative is suggesting and people being able to know what the actual record of the government is, because everyone seems to know chapter and verse what the state government did during the pandemic and the pandemic response, but without the federal government there was not tens of thousands of people who were able to hold on to their jobs. Now, yes, did that create debt? Absolutely. Too much? You bet. But I am proud that our country didn't just fall back into sort of ideological positions of let them eat cake and a couple of million people can go on the unemployment queue.
Yep, absolutely, Paul. You've nailed it as always.
I love you.
You know what you're getting in terms of the federal government, the Morrison government. We've got a proven track record. We still don't know what Anthony Albanese's proposal is. What we do know is that last election, Labor intended to impose something like $387 billion of new taxes. Yes, they claim they've binned a few of them, but I bet they've got a whole heap more waiting in the bottom drawer to pull out if they are elected. So I think the key thing is for Australians to stick with what they know, stick with the people who saved their lives and livelihoods through the pandemic, and that is in large part the Morrison Liberal government.